5 things are sitting on your chest right now. Exactly 2 of them are entirely yours. The rest you have been carrying for free for years, and that is not a character flaw. It is a filing error. In the next 18 minutes, I am going to give you 3 columns. You draw them tonight on one sheet of paper turned sideways, and from then on, they sort anything you are carrying in under a minute. Column 1 is yours. Column 3 is noise. The middle column is the one nobody warns you about, and it is where nearly all durable adult suffering lives, because it is the only one of the 3 that lets you keep working. Here are your 5. A message you sent that has not been answered in 3 days. A decision somebody is making about your money or your work in a room you will never be invited into. A number in an account, on a screen, on a scale. One sentence somebody said about you that you have now replayed maybe 400 times, and something in your body you have been carefully not looking at. Of those 5, only 2 are yours all the way down, and in both cases, it is not the part you have been awake about. You cannot run this sort inside your head, and it is worth understanding exactly why, because the failure is not a lack of effort. Trying to audit your life from inside your own mind is like counting the cash in your pocket without taking it out.
You can feel that something is in there, and no matter how many times you feel it, the answer that comes back is the same. The mind sorts by loudness, and the loudest item in there is almost always the one you can do least about. 2 findings explain why a page does what a mind cannot. In 1927, Bluma Zeigarnik documented that unfinished business grips memory in a way finished business does not. Waiters could recite every unpaid order and lost it the moment the bill was settled. Then, in 2011, Massacampo and Baumeister published a study with the perfect title, Consider It Done, showing that unfulfilled goals intrude on completely unrelated tasks, and that simply making a specific plan for the goal stops the intruding. Notice what that means. The goal is not achieved. Nothing outside you has changed. The intrusion stops anyway, because the mind will hand a burden over to a page that it will never hand over to a promise. You already own a devotional version of this idea. Reinhold Niebuhr's prayer asks for the wisdom to know the difference between what can be changed and what cannot, and millions of people have that sentence hanging on a wall. Nobody was ever handed the method. Tonight you draw it. If you are in the car right now or walking, you do not need paper. The 3 columns are built to be held in your head first, but they do get drawn.
A page you thought about is not a page. One sheet turned sideways, 2 vertical lines down it, and we fill them out of order for a reason you will see later. Start with column 1, because almost everyone writes it wrong, and the error has a grammar to it. Epictetus opens his handbook by splitting the world in 2. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. What he leaves out is the practical test, and the test turns out to be about parts of speech. Column 1 items are verbs you can perform tomorrow without anyone's permission. Column 2 items are nouns with other people's names hidden inside them. Tomas is 41, 9 years at the same firm, contract not renewed in March. His first draft of column 1 reads, "Get another job, provide for my daughter, be respected in my field." All 3 feel like duties, and all 3 are verdicts that other people deliver: a hiring committee, an economy, a profession. He has written column 2 and labeled it column 1, which is precisely how a decent man ends up exhausted and ashamed at the same time. So he rewrites, "Send 11 letters this week, each one specific to the company, none of them begging. 2 hours every morning on the skill he has been avoiding for 3 years. Tell his daughter the truth on Sunday, in language a 9-year-old can actually hold. Read those two lists back to back, and something strange shows up.
The honest list is harder to do and lighter to carry. That is the signature of a true column 1 entry. It costs more effort and less of you. Notice also what disappeared in the rewrite, the word respected. Respect was never an action he could take. It is a weather system that forms inside other people, and the only move available to him is to stand where it tends to form. So rewrite every line until it starts with a verb, carries a number or a day, and needs nobody's approval to begin. If a line cannot survive that edit, it was never column 1. Move it right. But there is one item almost everyone leaves off column 1, and it happens to be the largest thing on the page. It is your own response. Most of us file our reactions in the wrong column entirely, as something that happens to us, arriving from outside, with no author. Epictetus is blunt about it in the 5th chapter of the handbook. People are disturbed not by events, but by their judgments about events. Your response is the one thing that stays yours on the days when nothing else does. 11 years of family dinners, every single one, somewhere between the food and the coffee, an older brother makes the same small barbed remark about his younger brother's career. 8 words, delivered lightly, always with someone else in the room. Over 11 years, the younger man has drafted and polished a reply.
He has revised it in the car, in the shower, at 2 in the morning, sharpening it like a blade he keeps in a drawer. He has never once used it. Now sort it. The remark is 4 seconds long. It happens roughly 6 times a year, and it belongs to his brother, column 2 at best, and honestly, column 3. The 11 years belong to him, column 1, every hour of it. He has been paying rent on 4 seconds at compound interest for over a decade. There is no technique that makes a brother's contempt feel pleasant. The question is only where the ledger sits. Ancient writers passed down a story about Epictetus, who was born a slave, that his master twisted his leg until it broke, and that Epictetus calmly told him it would break, and then, when it did, said, "There, I told you." Historians are not sure it happened. The reason the story survived 2,000 years is that it names the one possession a man in chains could still be found to have. So add a line to column 1 that begins, "How I answer when this happens." Then write the actual sentence, the real words, tonight, while nothing is happening. A response you compose in advance is yours. A response you compose in the moment belongs to whoever provoked it. Which is a good moment to jump to the end of the page, because we fill column 3 second, out of sequence, on purpose.
Clearing it empties the desk and leaves the real problem standing alone and exposed. And column 3 is not the trivial stuff. It is the loud stuff that impersonates vigilance, the feed, the news cycle, a stranger's opinion, the argument you are rehearsing with somebody who is not in the room, and every hypothetical future you have been diligently pre-suffering. Picture a smoke alarm wired to the toaster. It goes off 6 times a day, it is deafening, and it is never once about fire. You do not rip the alarm off the ceiling. You rewire what triggers it. Here is where people go wrong. They try to stop thinking about column 3, and Daniel Wegner settled that in 1987 with the white bear experiments. Tell yourself not to think about a white bear, and you will manufacture a very reliable bear. Suppression manufactures the bear. A container houses it. Borkowicz's worry postponement work is the cleanest version of the container. The same 30 minutes, the same chair every day. The worry is not argued with, defeated, or reasoned away. It is given an appointment. And you will find yourself sitting in that chair at 6 o'clock with markedly less to say than you expected at 2 in the morning. Seneca had the diagnosis long before anyone had the schedule, when he wrote to a friend that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The test for column 3 is severe.
If the thing you are turning over could not be altered by any action of yours or of any human being you could actually reach in any version of tomorrow, it goes in 3. Not because it does not matter, it matters, and it will keep arriving whether or not you have made room for it. So do not fight it, schedule it, and write the items down even though they look absurd on paper, because noise you refuse to name does not disappear. It expands until it fills the whole page. Everything so far has been the easy half. Column 1 is honest labor, and column 3 looks ridiculous the second it exists in ink. Now the turn, and it is the reason this page exists at all. The middle column does not look like suffering, it looks like diligence. Column 2 is influence without decision, and it is the only one of the 3 that lets you keep working, which is exactly what makes it the trap. Skinner established that the most persistent behavior in any animal comes not from constant reward, but from variable ratio reward. You pull, and sometimes, unpredictably, it pays. Column 2 is a variable ratio schedule with your dignity in the slot. You refresh the applicant portal 40 times a day. The pipeline closes just often enough to keep you at the lever, and a parent's approval arrives about once every 2 years, which resets the whole machine for another 2.
Susan Nolan Hoeksema spent a career showing that turning something over and over feels like problem solving, while predicting longer and more severe depressive episodes, the mind's most convincing counterfeit of work. Then there is the hard version. James Stockdale was shot down over Vietnam in 1965 and held for 7.5 years, and he carried Epictetus into that cell with him. Asked long afterward who did not make it out, his answer was not the pessimists, it was the optimists. The men who said, out by Christmas, then out by Easter, then out by Thanksgiving. They died, he said, of a broken heart. They were not weak men. They had placed their entire life in column 2 and staked it on a date that nobody inside that prison could sign. And that gives you the tell you can use tomorrow. If 10 minutes of thinking about something produces no verb, you are not solving anything. You are in column 2. The absence of a verb is the entire diagnosis. So here is the rule the whole page turns on. Nothing is permitted to live in column 2. Every entry either converts into a column 1 verb or gets released into column 3's container. The middle column is a corridor you walk through, never a room you furnish. 3 moves get it done. First, name the single lever you actually have, which is always smaller and more specific than the anxiety suggests. Second, price it, what, by when, to what standard, and then it is paid. And paid things do not get paid twice. Third, hand back the rest out loud. The Stoics had a formal device for exactly this, the reserve clause. Seneca describes the wise man beginning every undertaking with a condition attached. I will do this if nothing prevents. The clause is a property line. You are declaring before you start where your work ends and the world's answer begins, which is the one boundary anxiety refuses to draw on its own. Cicero preserved the image that makes it physical. The orcher controls the stance, the draw, the release, everything inside the shot. And the hitting was never part of the shot. Watch 3 conversions of increasing weight. Will they extend the offer becomes, I send 1 follow-up Tuesday, a single paragraph, no chasing. I keep 2 other conversations alive. The decision happens in a room I am not in. Will he forgive me becomes, I write the letter that names exactly what I did and asks for nothing back, and I post it Sunday. And the asking for nothing is what makes it column 1, because the instant you require a reply, the whole thing slides back into the corridor. And the heavy one.
Will the scan come back clean becomes I show up, I ask the 3 questions I wrote down, I eat dinner, I sleep. The cells are already whatever they are.
My worry tonight is not a vote. That last item is the rare one that goes straight from 2 to 3, and pretending otherwise is precisely where people break. To make a converted line hold under pressure, give it a trigger. Peter Gallwitzer's implementation intentions, the if-then form. If I catch myself refreshing the portal, then I open the letter draft instead. By the time the pen goes down, column 2 should be empty. That emptiness is the product of the whole exercise, and anything still sitting in the middle at midnight is something you have not yet decided to either pay for or let go of. Undecided is the most expensive state there is. The objection usually arrives in your own voice, and it arrives fast. This sounds like giving up. People around you may even say you have stopped caring. The reverse is what is happening. Column 2 caring is a diffuse burn that consumes the fuel and heats nothing. Column 1 caring is the same fuel, aimed at one thing, and it is the first time all year that the heat has landed anywhere. In 2016, Stephen Meyer and Martin Seligman went back to their own famous learned helplessness work and concluded the original reading had been backwards. Helplessness is not what gets learned. Passivity under prolonged adversity is the default setting of the mammalian brain. What gets learned, what has to be actively trained into a specific circuit, is the detection of control. Read that against your page, and column 1 changes character entirely. Column 1 is the training input. Every small owned action is one repetition on the circuit that lets you perceive agency at all. And then Marcus Aurelius, who had more apparent control than any human being alive, writing at a camp on the Danube while plague moved through the empire, and across those same years his co-emperor died, and a trusted general declared himself emperor in the East. The notebook holds almost no strategy. It holds one reminder, written to himself again and again and again. Not because he kept forgetting it, because the mind refiles everything overnight, and every morning the columns have quietly swapped their contents while you slept. Expect to redraw it. I redraw mine. Things move, and the movement is the interesting part. Skill carries items from 2 into 1, so the thing you could only hope for last year becomes something you can simply do, while age and honesty carry items the other way. A person who never redraws the page spends years defending a border that moved without telling them. The sorting is the practice. The page is only where it happens. And anyone who tells you they did this once and were fixed is describing a memory they have grown fond of.
Which brings us back to the 5 things I named at the start, and to the promise that only 2 of them were ever yours. Walk the finished sheet now, line by line. The value shows up in the watching, your own weight redistributing in front of you. The unanswered message. The sending was yours. The answering never was. Column 1 gets 1 line. I said what was true, and I do not send a second one. The decision being made about your work in a room you will never enter. Paid in full. Proposal in by Friday. At your standard. No apology in the cover note. And everything after that goes right. The number on the screen splits across all 3 columns, which is exactly why it torments you. The behavior that produces it is column 1. The number itself is column 2. And the comparison between your number and somebody else's is column 3. And always was. The sentence you have replayed 400 times. The sentence is 4 seconds and belongs to them. The 400 replays are yours, all of them, start to finish. And the thing in your body you have not been looking at. Booking the appointment is a verb, so it goes in column 1 tonight, with a time on it. The result is not a verb, and never will be. Count what you circled. 2. The 400 replays and the appointment with a time on it. Those 2 are entirely yours, start to finish. No other signature required.
The other 3 gave you one honest line each and then went right, which is exactly the point. You have been awake most of the year over the part that went right. Look at how short column 1 is. 9 lines, maybe 11. That short list is the complete inventory of everything you can do anything about with the one life you have, and you have been spending most of your attention outside it. The real test arrives next Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon, when something lands, an email, a tone of voice, a silence, and instead of your chest going first, you notice your mind reaching for a column. That is the whole thing. You will know it is working when your first question stops being what is going to happen and becomes, which column is this? That question costs nothing, takes under a second, and it is the only question on the page you can always answer. You were handed the request for the wisdom to know the difference a long time ago, probably on somebody's wall, in a frame, in a room you were passing through. Tonight you drew the difference, 9 lines of it, in your own handwriting, on a page nobody else will ever read. Column 1 is yours. Column 2 is a corridor. Column 3 is noise. Put tomorrow's column 1 lines somewhere your eyes land before your phone does. The page is drawn at night and spent in the morning.
Then fold it, put it in the drawer, and let the 5 things settle into their proper places without you standing guard over them all night. Draw it again Sunday. And if this is the kind of sorting you want to keep doing, stay close, subscribe, and the next one will meet you where this leaves off. For now, that is enough.